Just want to comment a little bit about this developing story about the Chinese national who was apprehended at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, because it's an intriguing story, and I think there's a few talking points around it. Just a disclaimer: it is a developing story, so there's a lot of information sort of coming out. CNN's just been discussing it. So it's one of those things that could change rapidly. But the information at present seems to be that this woman with the surname of Zhang, which doesn't exactly narrow things down, there's tens of millions of people in China with that surname, um, was apprehended at the resort. She had a sloppy excuse about wanting to use a pool. I understand it's a public resort as well as Trump's residence. Um, but she didn't have a bathing suit. She had a number of electronic devices, thousands of dollars in cash, and just the circumstances seem suspicious. So the speculation is that she may be a Chinese spy, but as they pointed out in the analysis of this, if she is a spy, she's a pretty sloppy one. And if this is the best Beijing has to offer, then I think the West can sleep well. Um, Apparently, she had a tantrum and claimed that she had an invitation to be inside. She's being connected with one Cindy Yang, who apparently is a spa owner in the vicinity. Um, I don't know, it's a developing story. But one thing that is worth mentioning is that both China and Russia, I feel, have got very complacent with Trump. Because the most that'll happen is he'll kind of, if he does raise the issue with Xi Jinping the next time they meet, then of course Xi will deny it. And then Trump will just go along with that. I mean, never has a president denigrated himself before foreign dictators as much as Trump has. Not every foreign dictator, but Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. I mean, I can't forget that disgraceful occasion where the Helsinki summit, where Trump publicly denigrated his own security services and basically went along with what Putin was saying. I mean, that's a disgrace. True, the State Department took a hard line with Russia after the Salisbury attack and expelled lots of Russian diplomats. But I think there's a real discrepancy between Trump and his cabinet, between Trump and the American government. I mean, Kirstjen Nielsen has just resigned. I can't think of a president in my lifetime that's had such a rocky relationship with his own appointments, which at best shows Trump's poor lack of judgment. If he thinks these people are not worthy for his cabinet, or if they feel they can't work with him, what does that tell us? It's not a good sign. And even the most hardcore Trump supporter would have to acknowledge that it's been a rocky ride. But regarding this incident and others like it, I think it's also, if she is a Chinese spy, and I think there's reasonable grounds that she might be, her little tantrum also shows the arrogance of Beijing. There's been similar incidents in the UK, not necessarily of spies, but of um, Chinese regime cheerleaders, let me put it that way, who have been caught out, and instead of making excuses or apologizing, they have tantrums. The Chinese regime kind of works on this thing of hurt feelings. It's probably the most sensitive government in the world, and it's kind of pathetic. But what's also pathetic is when the West kowtows to this mentality. I think that when the Chinese state behaves this way, when their nationals have little tantrums in the tolerant West, then I frankly feel that Western governments need to be a lot more outspoken. Um, I mean, this is a developing story. Like I say, if she is a spy, it indicates one or two things. She's a very sloppy spy. Um, Actually, three things. The Chinese state isn't using their best, or they're complacent and they don't really care. So, in other words, they're using someone who's not that professional, but they don't really care. It's almost like they're testing the water. Maybe they're using, it's pure speculation on my part, but maybe they're using someone who isn't very efficient to test the water to see how Trump's White House would respond before they graduate to more serious stuff, more professional personnel. I don't know. The whole thing's very, it's like something out of a James Bond novel. It's just very, I don't know, almost laughable. But there's nothing funny about Chinese arrogance, particularly as it is a powerful country. And I feel that we are seeing the Chinese state using Western tolerance against us. There's been many examples of this. Um, it's good that we speak out against a nasty little regime like Brunei, but I really think the real test of Western integrity is to show that it can stand up to Russia and China, which are two powerful adversaries. And we shouldn't be basically going along with China's narrative. I think the Beijing regime, it's like all bullies, it only understands one language. And for the last sort of generation, what they've been doing is playing the victim when it suits them and playing the hurt sensitivities card. I think if there's a collective sort of standing up to Beijing, they'll get the hint and they'll back off. And even if, you know what, even if this woman isn't a spy, even if she's just a Chinese national, what does that show us? It still shows us that it's this kind of nationalistic arrogance of certain Chinese nationals feel they can come to Western countries and do what they want. I mean, China wouldn't tolerate that with Westerners. When I was over there, I couldn't just do what I wanted. I couldn't just argue with security people and so on. Um, so there's clearly not a balance in this relationship in terms of how it's seen. And as I always say with these things, I'm not anti-China at all, but I am anti-Chinese government arrogance, and definitely against any Chinese attempts to undermine the West. And that's clear cut for me. It's not my affection for the country and my personal connections with that country doesn't change the fact I could see what the Chinese regime is doing. And this might just be a rather comical example of it.